Welcome to What in the Duck podcast. I'm your host, Oliver Peck. What in the Duck podcast is proud to be sponsored by Dream Machines of Texas, www.dreammachinesoftexas.com. All your used motorcycle wants and needs all in one place at www.dreammachinesoftexas.com. They have multiple locations with large inventory and get new bikes in every week. Knowledgeable staff with great service and financing and extended warranty options available. They also have a complete service garage, so every bike is gone through and brought up to speed before you hit the road. I have bought more than a few bikes from Dream Machines over the years, and I could not be more satisfied. I've also had friends from all over the country buy bikes from Dream Machines because they couldn't find a better deal anywhere. You can buy a bike and have it shipped to you anywhere in the U.S. Why buy a brand new bike with that brand new high price when you can get a like-new bike with that dream deal you've been looking for? Go to www.dreammachinesoftexas.com and get a bike and get your ass on the road. All right. Welcome to What in the Duck podcast. I'm your host, Oliver Peck, and I'm happy to be here. Today we've got a good buddy of mine, tattooer guest, Tom Moser. Great tattooer, wonderful man, solid American. I worked with him when we were both younger at Classic Tattoo in Fullerton, California, and he went on to do a lot of great things. He now owns multiple locations of Port City Tattoo in Long Beach, Costa Mesa, Santa Ana, and great shops, and they're amazing. And we're going to have a quick little chat with Tom Moser. He had an interesting deal during the 2020 where he ended up actually suing the establishment, the man, Gavin Newsom, about their unconstitutional closure and remain closure of tattooing for longer than they should have. So that's a interesting tidbit. But first, I'm going to answer a few questions, talk to a few people, and see what's going on. Hope y'all are doing great out there, and thank you so much for chiming in and tuning in and checking it out. Be sure to do all the things on the internet. You know, get on there and like, subscribe, and share. If you're on the YouTube, you got the full video. If you're just on some other apps, it might be audio only, but full video is always uploaded to YouTube, except in the rare occurrences where we had some corrupted files and lost complete video. So RIP to some past What in the Duck episodes. First question, Joshua G. just says, how you doing? Well, pretty simple little question, but man, I'm doing pretty good. Things are good. The world is crazy. Shit is literally fucking unraveling at the edge. And only time will tell how much fucking crazier this world is going to get. But as for myself, I'm traveling. I'm doing tattoos. I just got home from Ohio. I went up there for the Wasion motorcycle swap meet, and I tattooed at Tattoo Faction, my buddy Greg Christian, and we had a great time. And the swap meet is a beautiful place. We had beautiful weather, middle of a field, middle of nowhere, Ohio, walking around looking at antique motorcycle parts, and it's kind of like looking at a deconstructed motorcycle museum. If you're there shopping for something particular to fix up an old bike, it's cool. But if you're just there to walk around and check it all out, it's also really cool. So if you get a chance to go to an antique motorcycle swap meet anywhere, anytime, I recommend it. If you're into motorcycles at all, it's really cool. If you're not into motorcycles, there's still a bunch of cool shit there. And one of the things I love about the antique meets, there's Wasion, Ohio, Davenport, Iowa, Gas City, Indiana, Ole, Pennsylvania, Denton, North Carolina. There's one during Daytona in Florida. I mean, there's a lot, and they're all over. There's some great ones in California. But one thing I love about the antique motorcycle meets is they're all put on. Most of them are all put on by different chapters around the country of the Antique Motorcycle Club of America, AMCA, which I am a proud member. And if you like motorcycles, you should definitely join the AMCA. But I'm spinning down a wormhole here. But one of the things I love the most about the antique meets is you don't have to know everything. You can walk up to a booth or a table and see a part, and you don't know what the fuck it is, and you could ask them, hey, what does this go to? And they're happy to share some information and some knowledge, and you can learn about parts and motorcycles and different makes and different models and different years and all the cool things. And it's, you don't have to be shy. You can just ask all the questions you want, and most of the people there are happy to, tell stories and share information and spread the knowledge of the antique goods. And it's really cool to see how things were made over the different decades, the last 100 years of motorcycling, how things evolved. And you can see like an early part from a 30s or 40s motorcycle and see how it's very similar to a part on a modern motorcycle, and what kind of R&D and what kind of led to the evolution of motorcycles. And you can see, oh, well, obviously this part broke a bunch, and then they added this part, discuss it later. And it's all these cool things. So it's really cool to walk around the swap meet and just learn about stuff and learn about history and see cool shit. And it's like art on two wheels is what the Antique Motorcycle Club is about. So check it out. Can't wait till the next swap meet. I think the next one coming up quick, the big one, Davenport, Iowa. It's funny. Some of the biggest and best swap meets are literally in the middle of nowhere. It's like, oh, what's the best swap meet? It's not like Chicago or Miami or Dallas or LA. It's like Ole, Pennsylvania, which is a tiny little town with just a random field and near a firehouse. But it's really cool. All right, Carson Martin says, hi, Oliver. What is your opinion on street shops versus private studios? Well, I was raised in the tattooing tradition of a street shop, and I love that atmosphere. I love the communication and camaraderie with the fellow artist. I love being in an environment that's inviting to everybody to come in and hang out. It's kind of, to me, it was like our version of the barbershop where guys just hung out. People just came in and people talked shit and people got tattooed. And nowadays, the current trend of the private studio is I personally think it's kind of getting out of hand. I think there's definitely a place for it. And there's definitely artists that thrive in that environment. But I think that the people that thrive in that environment have to, for lack of better words, have paid their dues and work to get to that position. But for a young tattooer to go straight into a private studio, within the first couple of years they're tattooing, it's gonna stifle their growth. I think it's gonna stifle their ability to, interact in a bunch of different situations. And the whole idea, a lot of people sitting there with headphones on, tattooing, not communicating with the other artists, not communicating with their clients is a pretty drab environment. When you get a large amount of tattoos from somebody, or if you're an artist and somebody gets a large amount of tattoos from you, it is a considerable amount of time that you're spending with this person. So there's a lot of connections that get built, and and the people, if you don't make this connection with someone, then they're probably not going to continue to get this large amount of work from you. You have to build this relationship, and it's a very big commitment to get a back piece or, a full bodysuit or something. So having that street shop background where you can communicate with people and build those relationships, and your whole idea is that you want to give this person the best experience overall, plus a good tattoo, you're going to get them back and you're going to get more business. You're going to do more tattoos. You're going to get better at tattooing. The more you do it, the better you get. So if you start young in your tattoo career into a private studio where you're only dealing with one or two people a day. And there's a lot of people that are, saying they're booked up, but they only do one or two tattoos a day. It's going to take a lot longer for someone to get to that expert level at that rate. The whole 10,000 hour rule. They say you're not an expert at something until you've done it 10,000 hours, until it becomes second nature. When you don't have to think about doing something, your body just does it. Your mind just does it. Your hands just do it. It's like a natural reaction. And you're not going to have that in your first couple of years of tattooing. You're just not. You're gonna make decisions on what to do instead of just instinctively doing it. Just like riding a motorcycle. When your first couple of years you're riding a motorcycle, you're looking at every street ahead and you're like, okay, I'm going to turn left. I'm going to turn on my turn signal. I'm going to hit the brake. I'm going to pull the clutch. I'm going to downshift. I'm going to do this. You're thinking all these things. But after you've been riding for 10, 15, 20 years, you don't think about anything. Body just does all those things. You riding a motorcycle has become your second nature. Just like when you're walking down the street, you don't think, I need to pick my left foot up and put it in front of my right. I need to put my right foot up and put it in front of. You're not making these conscious decisions to do these things. It has just become what you do. So I think the quicker you can get to that point where tattooing is your second nature, the better you're going to be. If you ride a motorcycle a couple hours a week, it's going to take a long time to get to that point. You ride a motorcycle every single day, you're going to get a lot comfortable. You're going to get a lot better. You're going to be a lot more confident, a lot quicker. I don't even know if I answered the question about my opinion versus street shops versus private studios, but I prefer the street shop environment. I prefer being in the mix. I prefer the excitement of everybody coming and getting tattooed and sharing that experience with what all the other artists are doing, and looking at every tattoo that gets done next to me, and people looking at tattoos that I do, and learning and shared growth experience. And that's what you get from that walk-in shop experience. And that's why I love tattooing so much. That's why I love going to work. I love going to work. I love going to the tattoo shop because I know I'm going to hang out and see a bunch of cool shit and get to do a bunch of fun shit and be a part of a group that's all working for its common goal. If I knew I was going to just a little cave by myself, I don't know if I would love it as much. But you know what they say. Next question. Says, what are some of your most memorable tattoos that I have, and who did them? Well, I'll tell you this. I got a lot of tattoos. My whole body's tattooed. I would say the ones I think about the most are the ones I see the most. So I see my hands. I see my forearms. I see the tops of my thighs when I'm sitting on the toilet. That's what you see the most. I don't look at my rib tattoos that much. I don't see my back piece very much. I don't see the backs of my thighs hardly ever unless I, get in some weird position or take a photo of it. But some of my favorite tattoo artists that I've gotten tattooed from are in these conspicuous spots, because it was later on in my career and I was already getting full. So I had this spot left, and I was able to get a really cool tattoo from someone I really looked up to, and it was in a weird spot. So it's kind of cool that like every couple of years something will come up and I'll be reminded of that tattoo, and I'll show it to someone, or somebody wants to see a tattoo that Eric Mosky did, and I'll have to show the back of my thigh or something like that, which is a really cool experience. And I get to get excited about that thing all over again. But if I had to pick one that was the most memorable and my favorite, I guess, hard to say favorite, but favorite scenario, experience, tattoo all around, I got a tattoo on my forearm from Dan Higgs in the early 90s. And, he was like one of the first, quote unquote, big name tattooers that I was like clued in on who they were from tattoo magazines and knowing that he worked at Tattoo City and knowing all these things. And he was doing a pretty unique style. And he came to Texas, and I was able to go get a tattoo from him, and I got it on my forearm, and it's really cool. And it's a candle with my mom's name. And, me and my mom, like, been best friends my whole life. So that's pretty cool. And my mom, was supportive of my tattoo career, but she wasn't into tattooing. But she was pretty proud when I got the name. But the story is pretty cool because I went to Austin, Perfection Tattoo. I'd got a lot of tattoos at Perfection from Chris Trevino. And so when Dan Higgs was going there, I was able to call him and say, hey, I heard Dan Higgs coming. I really want to get in. So he was able to make it. He was able to get me in. And I get there, I'm at the shop early, and Dan's not there yet. And Dan's a pretty particular, finicky character. And everybody's like, oh, man, you're getting tattooed by Dan? I was like, yeah, I'm super excited. And they're like, what do you want to get? And I told them what I wanted to get. And the people that were in the shop that had seen him tattooing the last day or so or whatever were like, oh, man, like, just be ready. Like, he's been like just doing whatever he wants on people, regardless of whether, or... And I was like, oh, well, I got this idea. So it's kind of like, ooh, I wonder what I'm going to end up getting because I have no idea what you're going to get. But it's kind of one of those situations where you're kind of, you're kind of willing to get whatever the person's going to do. And that is pretty common in tattooing. There are certain tattooers that bring a certain thing to the table that you're just willing to do what they do instead of having a strict idea of what you want. And Dan Higgs came in. He was kind of disheveled. If you know who Dan Higgs is, disheveled is probably a pretty good descriptive word for his overall personality and appearance. But he's very clever, very witty, and he's very intelligent. And he's a great illustrator. But so Dan Higgs comes in and he's like, what do you want to get? And I said, I want to get a candle with a little finger holder and a banner of my mom's name. And he said, oh, man. I just had a dream about a candle. This is going to be perfect. And he ran into the back room. And everybody was like, whoa, that was crazy. And he came out a few minutes later with a piece of tracing paper. And he traced the spot on my arm. And he went back into the back room. Was gone for a little while. And he came back out with this really cool drawing. Exactly what I wanted, exactly how I pictured it, exactly what I thought Dan Higgs would do with this idea, like to the T. And I was like, oh, man, this is, perfect. And he had drawn a banner but didn't write the name. And he goes, what's the name you want in there? And I said, I want Diana Lee, D-I-A-N-N-A, 2 N's. And he said, okay, cool. I'll have to make this banner a little longer. So he went back in the back room and just made the banner a little longer to fit the name, and then came out, made the stencil, came out. And one of the cool things that happened is he went to put the stencil on my forearm, and the flame at the top of the candle went too far up and it hit my other tattoo. And he without even flinching or thinking about it, he just ripped the top of the stencil off, ripped the fire off of the whole candle, and just stuck the stencil on my arm, and then took the fire and turned it at a 45-degree angle where it didn't hit the tattoo top, and just stuck that on. With it before I could, just like snap, second nature, like I was talking about. Like, he's been doing this so long, he's just like, oh, well, just rips the stencil, throws one on, puts the fire on. And I was like, oh, man, that's pretty cool. So now the flame, instead of just going straight up, is kind of going over or whatever, which is totally cool. And did the tattoo, and it's awesome. And everybody was just like, man, that's the best tat that he did while he was in town. And in an added note to this story, years later, and I think it was 98 or 99, at the San Francisco Tattoo Convention, I'm walking through the convention, and I'm just walking down the aisle, and I see up ahead is the Tattoo City booth, and Ed Hardy and Dan Higgs are standing in the booth. And I'm like, oh, cool, and I'd met Ed Hardy a few times, and, not that he would know who I was or anything. But by this time, I'd been tattooed by Dan a couple of times. And I walk up, and as I get close, I see Dan. We make eye contact and kind of do the nod like I'm going to walk up and I'm going to say hi. And right as I get close, Dan Higgs turns to Ed Hardy and goes, "Hey, Ed, you want to see the best tat I ever did?" And he goes, "Oliver, show Ed that forearm." And I put my arm out there and Ed grabbed my arm. He's like, "Man, that is a nice tattoo." And I walked away knowing that I had the best tattoo that Dan ever did. And by his own admission. And a few years later, Dan Higgs quit tattooing. And he was just, he's into music. He did a bunch of music. He did a bunch of other art. He does a bunch of painting. And he just got to the point, I think he just got, he was socially awkward. And I think he just didn't like what the interactions of tattooing had become. I don't know. It just, he just quit tattooing. And I think he ended up doing a couple of tats here and there over the times, but never made a real comeback. And he just quit tattooing and exited the business. And I cherish that tattoo. I cherish all my Dan Higgs tattoos. I guess that's my most memorable tattoo story. And if you ever see me and you want to see a really cool Dan Higgs tattoo, I'll be happy to show it to you. All right. Next question, Rebecca S. She got a lot of questions, some of which I will not answer. But she gave me multiple choice on here. So first question that she says is, what is your favorite historical time period and why? Mid-century. The mid-century, the 50s and 60s, possibly the late 40s through the late 60s, whatever you want to call mid-century, is my favorite time. Favorite time for cars, favorite time for motorcycles, favorite time for decor. And it was at a time, and the reason is it was like our Renaissance, our generations, our last 100 years Renaissance, when everything in design was artfully done. If anything that was being made in the late 40s, in the 50s, in the 60s, everything was designed artfully and beautifully. Doorknobs were not just stale round shapes. Light switch covers were not just plain square white pieces of plastic. Everything was artfully done. Cars, door handles on cars, the knob on the stereo of a car, the dash, the speedometer of a car. Every single car had a different style completely of a speedometer. Nowadays, every car has little digital letters that say what speed you're going. But in the 50s, every brand had their own style. They weren't all circulars. They weren't all, I've got a 1960 Oldsmobile that the speedometer is like a long line with a spiral inside, where when you speed up, the spiral turns colors. So the green line goes across 20, 30, 40, 50, 60. And when you hit 60, it turns to orange. And then it turns to, when you get up to 70, it turns red, like you're going fast now. It's like this cool thing. People cared about style. People cared about style. People cared about being cool. People cared about things being beautiful. People cared about making your environment pleasant. Instead of nowadays, it's just this stale, mundane, white walls everywhere. Everything's square. Everything's white. Everything's lame. Everything's made of fucking plastic. Everything's fucking cheap. Everything is built to be thrown in the trash. You get a ballpoint pen from the 1940s, it'll last you till the day you fucking die. You buy a ballpoint pen today, in 1 week, it will be in the garbage can. Because people don't care. And it's just a plain piece of gray fucking plastic that looks like shit. It looks like nothing. It looks like it doesn't care. It looks like it doesn't matter. And that's what it is. It doesn't matter. People decided at some point that it doesn't matter what the doorknob looks like as long as it opens the door, because all you care about is getting through the door. It doesn't matter if the doorknob looks cool. It doesn't matter if the trim is ornate. It doesn't matter if things have any craft or care or precision put into them. All that matters is where you're going. Just go. Just get through the door. Don't look at the doorknob. Who cares what it looks like? Doesn't matter. Doorknob's going to break in 6 months. We'll get another lame-ass piece of shit plastic doorknob in another 6 months, and it won't matter what that one looks like either. And it's just going to be all in the landfill of trash. But then you can go to an antique swap meet, and you can buy motorcycle parts that were made in 1930, 1940, 1950, 1960 that are still beautiful, that are still cool, that are still craftily done. And people cared, and things mattered. And that's why I long for the past. Then that's the other question that Rebecca has that I'm going to answer is, who was a teacher that made a big impact on you? I was not a very studious person. I was particularly had no interest in school or care, and it showed in my grades. I only did just enough work to pass just because I was required to make it through each grade, to make it to the next grade, because that was the life that I was told was important from my parents. And so I passed barely. My senior year in high school, I had pretty much given up and didn't care. And my mom really wanted me to graduate. And I was like, why does it matter? And I had barely made it through the 11th grade because right at the end of the 11th grade, I double compounded my right arm really bad and multiple surgeries and missed a lot of school. And for the last month of school, I couldn't use my arm or write or anything. So I kind of just got this pass where I just went to school a little bit and they just gave me the grades and I just barely made it through. And I did absolutely zero work for the last month of school because my hand was, unusable. So then senior year comes along and I'm just like, what is the difference? What does it matter? Like I just got shuffled through because nobody cared because they just don't want me back, And I had this English teacher and he was like, Mr. Meehan. I literally remember two of my teachers' names from my entire life. Mr. Meehan was my 12th grade English teacher, and Mr. Vickery was my woodshop teacher, 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th grade. Woodshop was the class that I loved the most, and I just would skip classes and go to woodshop and just work on wood shit. But Mr. Meehan and Mr. Vickery from woodshop, he was an amazing man, and he knew that I wasn't going to be a scholar. So he's like, you better learn how to do some woodworking so you can do something with your life. But Mr. Meehan was like, hey, it's important that you get this diploma. You've been this far through school, your 12th grade, you might as well pass. And he's like, I know you're not going to need a lot of the things that you're learning here. I was always drawing in class. Other teachers would take my drawings away and throw them away. Mr. Meehan would take my drawing and admire it and give it back to me. And give me praise on my artistic stuff. And I was like, that was really cool. And he basically, towards the end of the senior year, he's like, look, you're barely passing. You have to do a term theme to graduate high school. And you don't have to make a passing grade on your term theme, but you have to make at least a minimal score to bring your rest of your scores up to a minimal passing grade so you can graduate high school. So he basically told me and my mother all the things you needed to do for a term theme. And he's like, what on your term theme is graded and what gets points? So for having, you check out all the books for your reference for your term theme and you make note cards for all your references. That gets a certain amount of points for having the right note cards, have the right headings on the note cards. So basically what I did is I built a full outline for a term theme. I had every page with the heading on the top. I had note cards with all the references. I checked out all the books. I gave all the things, but it was zero content. I read none of the books that I checked out. I wrote nothing down on any of the note cards from the stuff that I didn't read. I basically just turned in this thing that someone else could finish their term theme on. And it got, with all the points that added up, I get like a 30 or 40 on the term theme. And then that brings my average up to a passing D grade, and I pass English and I graduate high school. And it worked. I graduated. Not that I needed it, but I did graduate, which people always say, what do you regret in life? And I say, I regret that I graduated high school. I regret that I was too much of a pussy to not just drop out of school and go get a fucking job and do something with my life instead of just sitting there, because I feel like I could have got ahead of the game. But then I ended up selling drugs, getting in a lot of trouble anyway, so it's probably best that I stayed in school a little bit longer. But years later, I'm tattooing at a tattoo shop that had piercing, and lo and behold, Mr. Meehan walks in, and I'm like, hot diggity, Mr. Meehan. And he's like, Oliver, what are you doing here? And he's like, I'm tattooing now. And and he looked at me, he smiled. He said, I knew you were going to do something with your art. And I was like, man, that's pretty cool. So thank you, Mr. Meehan. I think I've talked about Mr. Meehan on other platforms before, but he was a great teacher because he didn't just teach the book. He taught the student what they needed to get through in life. And I think that was important. And Rebecca does have another question on here that I'm just going to read just so I can be upset about it. It said, if you had to choose, would you rather be a Swiftie or a Disney adult? And I got to say, the two worst things you can be right now in our society are a Swiftie and a Disney adult. This one goes out to Anthony Fresquez, a.k.a. Fernie. A Disney adults, him and his girlfriend go to Disney as their choice of a vacation as adults without children, and put it on their credit card and charge money and save up for it. Could have went to Hawaii, could have went to Tibet, could have went to Bali, could have went to Thailand, could have went anywhere in the beautiful, could have just drove to Yellowstone, for crying out loud. You could have went anywhere in the world, and you chose to hang out with fucking Mickey Mouse. Disney adults. TARDS. That's right. But at least he doesn't like Taylor Swift. All right, next up, we're here with Tom Moser. Thanks for tuning in. What in the Duck podcast is proud to be sponsored by Anchor Screen Printing. Anchor Screen Printing has been printing t-shirts and merch products since 1999. Anchor is the place for quality, small-run items. At Anchor, every print is hand-done by people who care about art. No mass-produced machine-operated printing done here. You can email Anchor at anchorcustoms@gmail.com to talk about getting something printed for your company, brand, or shop. Anchor Screen Printing also has its own online merch store that sells Elm Street Tattoo, Cheap Thrills, Heart in Hand, Party First Safety Maybe merch, and much more. You can check it all out now at anchorscreenprinting.com. All orders at anchorscreenprinting.com over $35 have quick and free shipping in the continental U.S. So go to anchorscreenprinting.com today and buy some cool shit. Or you can click the link provided in this podcast to shop now. All right, here we are. We're live. This is What in the Duck podcast. I'm here in Port City Tattoo in Santa Ana, California with my good buddy Tom Moser.
Thanks for having me, Oliver.
How you doing? Oh man, well thank you for having me. I've worked at this shop a few times. Mm-hmm. I've worked at Port City, Long Beach a few times. Mm-hmm. Wonderful places to work in California.
Thank you.
You have created an amazing tattoo atmosphere, beautiful tattoo shops, great artists that work here, and just in a seems like a short time. From someone on the outside. Seems like a long time for you, but
15 years.
Yeah, I mean
14.
But even in a short time, like what I mean by is very quickly you established a strong tattoo brand in the community with Port City. You
The neighbors.
Well, I don't know what they just said. Somebody's yelling. But you did such a great job at putting together great shops and great art and great artists and bringing it together and being a strong part of the tattoo community in Southern California. And I just think it's amazing what you've been able to accomplish out here.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it and appreciate it coming from you.
And we worked together in the good old days.
The good old days.
As I like to call the golden days of classic tattoo, man.
Yeah.
Really, probably some of my most formative good time years of tattooing were 2000, what was that, 1-2 era?
Yeah.
And me and you worked together at Classic Tattoo. What a great time to be in Southern California and all the influences of all the great tattooers around here and working, in the same places as so many other great tattooers. I think it really did us both a lot of good.
Oh, yeah. That was like, I'd been probably tattooing 2 years when I went to Classic, and then like just opened up like a whole new world for me, seeing different artists, meeting you, hanging out, partying. Yeah, it was awesome.
Tom Collins used to party back then. I mean, you still have a good time.
Yeah, well, yeah, I like to have a good time. When I go out to Dallas, I like to turn it up a little bit, but people will come back here after seeing me in Dallas and they're like, so you're like a normal dude. You're just here tattooing and like, you're not wasted. I'm like, nah, bro, I'm on vacation.
Yeah, man. Well, one of the main things I wanted to talk to you about on this podcast is Southern California tattooing in general. Not even just Southern California, but California tattooing in general, and kind of the ups and downs that it's had in the last couple of years. And specifically, we want to touch on the topic of tattooing during the pandemic and how California dealt with that whole situation, seemingly drastically different than other states did.
Yeah.
And how you were able to navigate that landscape and survive. But, we're going to get more into it, but there was an actual lawsuit against the establishment.
Yeah. My buddy, Gavin Newsom.
Yeah. So to start off from my point of view real fast, just to get it going, I owned a tattoo shop in California, in Hollywood, True Tattoo. And it was already getting harder and harder to run a business in California for me, and Hollywood specifically. Hollywood was, everything's expensive in California, and then it's more expensive than LA, and then it's more expensive in Hollywood. And like you see your bills, and you have these added fees like Los Angeles City tax and Hollywood Entertainment District tax, and everything starts adding up, and you're like, why is my water bill $600?
Yeah.
You got a sink in a toilet, and in Dallas the water bill is $80, and in California the water bill is $800. What is going on here?
I mean, they're trying to get you wherever they can, and especially like cities like Hollywood, because it's such a touristy town that people know like the chances of a business opening up and doing decently for a little while at least is okay. So they'll gouge you however much they can. But, a lot of places don't stay because of all those extra fees. And, like a water bill, $600 for a toilet and a sink, that's insane.
It's insane. And the electric bill, forget about it.
Yeah. I mean, luckily Long Beach has, it's a small city, but it's big enough to have its own health department and water and everything like that. So they don't really, it's pretty reasonable, even though it is in LA County, it's a little different.
Well, I was just noticing the difference in how much I was paying just to be in that neighborhood.
Oh yeah. That was crazy.
When the 2020 happened and they started talking about closing tattoo shops down, I said, man, it is already very hard to keep this business open. And it's not making money already. And now you want to tell me I got to be closed? I was like, I just pulled the ripcord. I just bailed. As soon as they said they were going to close tattoo shops, the day before the shutdown happened, I was like, I'm packing up and leaving. And people thought I was crazy. And I was like, man, they said it's going to be 2 weeks.
Yeah, right.
And I was like, I don't believe that California is going to do anything for 2 weeks. It's going to be months. And my rent is so high that I can't afford to be closed and pay rent. And my landlord was not going to.
No, we were lucky to have a cool landlord, and he was like, hey, man, we'll do a forbearance on your lease or whatever. But I kept paying because we stayed open the whole time. Like, we closed down maybe for like 2 weeks after the health department came by. But I have a responsibility to my guys to feed their families. You know
But 2 weeks is what they said.
That's what they said.
And then, so you stayed closed for 2 weeks, but after that?
No. We stayed open the whole time because I said, hey, dude, I don't know what's going on really, but you guys need to make your money while you can, because this is kind of unprecedented and I don't trust them.
Yeah.
So,
well, I didn't trust them, and I knew that I could not afford to pay rent and not be open.
Yeah, that rent
I couldn't
was
afford
crazy.
to pay. I couldn't afford to pay rent while we were doing well, you know. So, and in Hollywood, the option of staying open anyway was not going to be there because they were on our ass.
And you guys are on the main
time.
strip, like everybody's going to see it.
And I just thought, what if it's 2 months? What if it's it's not going to be 2 months? And what happened? Well, in the end, look back, it was 8 or 9 months.
Yeah.
That they were legally telling you're not allowed to go to work, and claiming that certain businesses were essential and other businesses weren't essential. And I was just very clearly, I was like, however you make your money to live and survive and support your family, that's essential.
That's essential for sure.
So you can't tell certain groups of people they're allowed to work and others they're not. Now, people can choose to not go get a tattoo at this time, but that didn't happen. People still wanted to come get tattooed. So you stayed open and you did well. But at some point, it went too long.
It got crazy. You know, they closed down and then they would open back up and then they would close down again. And then basically what happened was, you know, they closed everything down, and then they said, oh, well, hair salons can open up. And I was like, well, you know, we're dealing with in the same proximity to customers as a hair salon is. We have better sanitation procedures than a hair salon does. Why wouldn't we be able to be open? So I had been thinking about that, and I had a lawyer that had already dealt with some tattooing issues with the state, and he basically took one of his cases up to the Ninth Court of Appeals, and the Ninth Court ruled that tattooing fell under your First Amendment right, freedom of speech. So the city could not discriminate on that for what they perceived it to be, like if they perceived it, you know, a bunch of gangsters or bikers or whatever in the past it used to be, you know? So knowing that, I was like, well, if this is our First Amendment right and they're letting this same type of business open up, why can't we open?
That's what was really mind-boggling, because when they shut it down, they shut certain things down in certain layers. And when they shut the layer down, they said tattoo shops, hair salons, massage parlors, all these things, they shut them all down together. But when it came time to open back up, they didn't open them all back up together. So it wasn't a fair across the board.
No, not at all.
So they closed restaurants down, or they said, oh, you have to...
Outside dining.
But they did it all these layers, and then they'd come back in layers. But for some reason, they just kept tattooing out when they let other things open, which obviously was the unfair portion of it.
I mean, yeah, it was definitely unfair. I don't feel like it was malicious. I feel like just tattooing doesn't have like the lobby that the cosmetologists have or the restaurant business has.
Well,
or
the
whatever.
politicians want to go get their hair done.
Yeah, exactly. They have to, you know, Nancy Pelosi got caught in that hair salon when she was telling everybody to close down. And Newsom, like, that dude goes through so much jail. He's probably getting a haircut every week, you know?
Yeah. Well, one of the things I do when I'm out here in California tattooing is I ask everybody that I meet that I tattoo, I ask them if they voted for Gavin Newsom. And I have yet to meet anyone that says they did vote for him. Now, either they did and they're ashamed to admit it, or nobody voted for this, and then they tried to repeal his governorship. Yeah. And somehow people voted to keep him in. And I don't, you know, we're not trying to be the election denier tinfoil hat people. I mean, but what the fuck is going on?
I think California politics have been kind of crooked for a while, especially. You don't really have to control the whole state. All you have to do is control San Francisco and LA. And if you get those people to vote, then you pretty much have
You're
it.
in.
So, you know, the middle of California is probably very, very against Newsom. And I would say a lot of people in the cities are too, but I don't really get it. I thought that his when they were going to kick him out of office, I thought that was going to go through, but it didn't. So I kind of lost like some hope with changing anything out here.
So,
but I also do think people are lying. When you ask them now, they're going to be like, no, I didn't vote for him. Yeah, you did, motherfucker. You know?
Well, so how did this come about? You knew someone who was a lawyer who had dealt with the state before, and you said, "Hey," or did you approach him, or he approached you?
He was actually my lawyer. I used him to open up in some cities that had restricted zoning.
You have to go through zoning court and all that.
Yeah, exactly. So, he would basically write them a letter and be like, "Hey, there's precedent, and this is illegal. What you're doing. Da 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 da. We just want to open up like any other business that is in a commercial or general commercial zone." So I knew him, and I hit him up after the hair salon thing. After they closed everything down, and then they let the hair salons open. That pissed me off, obviously. So I talked to him, and he's like, "Yeah, a couple of my other clients are talking to me about the same thing. Do you guys all want to go in on a case together?"
Other tattooers.
Yeah. So there was 3 of us. We all went in, and I was pretty sure that we had a pretty set case. It just depended on how long it was going to take the attorney general to like recognize it. So he wrote a couple letters, a little bit of back and forth, and they basically they knew that they didn't have a case, so they let tattooing open after that.
So it was mentally evasive on your part.
What's that?
It wasn't a lot of. You didn't have to do a whole lot of a long court battle.
It was very minimal.
But it just took somebody
Yeah.
raising a flag and saying, "Hey, what the fuck?
Yeah.
This is bullshit."
I mean, at that point, I had kind of lost my mind as far as the whole shutdown and COVID and craziness and everything. So I was just pissed like every day. And then,
a lot of tattoo shops like stayed closed for a long time.
Yeah, that's insane to me.
And a lot of people, I know some people that did close, and I know some people that got some rent forbearance and stuff. And I know some people that traveled outside of the state to go work other places that were open.
Yeah, you had to.
But what a weird time. And I know California is not the only state that was super strict. I feel pretty fortunate to be in Texas at the time, because what was going on with us was nothing compared to what was going on in some other places. No. But even in Dallas, being, a major liberal city, it was a little bit, but you could drive 7 miles outside of the city limit of Dallas, and people acted like there was nothing going on.
I mean, that's the difference compared to like LA County and Orange County, where we're at right now. I mean, like, we're open with the doors open, with the open sign on the entire time. And we tattoo a lot of local, the police department's like right on the corner right there. We tattoo a lot of those dudes. They just come by, wave, So Orange County was a lot easier to navigate during that time. But even in Long Beach, I had the health department call me a couple times, like, "Hey man, we know you're in there tattooing." I was like, "I don't know what you're talking about." He's like, "Just put some paper up over the windows and have people come in the back door." Like, everybody knew that it was insane at that point. And that pissed me off even more, but it's his job, it's his livelihood. Why is he going to stick his neck out for me? You know what I mean? At least he was trying to be cool and like let me know like what was up, but we had already been doing that. So,
well, I know that there was a couple of times that they would announce some restrictions, and then I remember that the Orange County sheriff like did a did a press thing where he said, "I'm not enforcing these."
No,
he's like, I can't enforce this. This is not my duty, right?
Yeah.
And so it's this big controversy. The state was saying, "You got to do this," and the police are like, "We're not going to do that."
Yeah, but then now when you go back and all these people are backpedaling on everything, they're like, "Well, no, these were just recommendations." It's like, "Oh, really? So you're trying to get the sheriff to come shut me down, but it was just on a recommendation?" Like, fuck that.
Well, we at Elm Street.
Can I say that?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
You can say whatever the fuck you want. At Elm Street, we boarded up the windows with plywood when the
because you guys
when the threat of the riots were coming,
and
actually they did come through and break windows all down Deep Ellum and stuff, and so we there was a couple of times that we were like, the boarded up for a couple of weeks. We were like, oh, we're going to, everybody started to unboard.
Mm-hmm.
And then there was like something on the
else
horizon.
happened,
And it just kept like, we just left the boards up. And then it was like, man, it's kind of fun.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the door's still open. You still come in, but it looked boarded up. But
Yeah.
most people were coming in for appointments, and it made it seem a lot more dramatic than it was.
Uh-huh.
And it got to this point where we had stayed boarded up so long that everybody else was unboarded. and my manager was just like, we need to take these boards down. And me and Jacob were like, we kind of liked it because the sun's not coming in and like it's cool in here. It's like kind of being in Vegas because it's like you're in there and you got tat shop vibe. And then somebody opens the door and the sun comes in. You're like, ah!
That's funny.
But so we stayed boarded. I don't know how long we ended up staying boarded up, but it was quite some time.
Mm-hmm.
But there was a few different waves where people reboarded up because riots came back in, and we just stayed. So we did unboard Heart and Hand down the street. And like a week after we unboarded, a group of riot came through and smashed the windows there.
Oh man.
And I was like, we should have stayed boarded up, But Elm Street stayed boarded up because we were just pretty much having fun with it. I don't know if you remember this story, but Y2K.
Yeah.
Me and Dean, we got all apocalyptic and we boarded up the front of the shop on the day before New Year's Eve on Y2K, and we spray painted the whole front of the shop like the end is near, and all this crazy stuff.
Of course you did.
And the news came down and like, what do y'all think's going to happen? And Dean was out there like, Dean was drunk on the news saying like, we're all going to die. And so when we boarded up for the pandemic, I just kept thinking about that the whole time. It was funny. Like pretty wild. But you've had surviving this and getting through and staying positive. You were able to maintain, most of your people were able to maintain their jobs.
Yeah, everybody worked. A couple of the dudes that didn't work, that was their deal. I didn't really trip on it until we were like really open, and it was kind of like, all right, it's time to come back to work. And some of them didn't want to, and that was fine. They went and worked somewhere else.
Yeah, I did have a few people that chose to go a different route because of the way I walk through that path,
I mean, probably, but
What in the Duck podcast is proud to be sponsored by Legacy Ink, the finest in tattoo pigments. I have been using this ink exclusively for over 20 years myself. It has been recently rebranded and marketed, but it has been the same recipe for decades. Real, hand-mixed tattoo pigments that heal great and last. People always comment on the yellow that I use and the yellow tattooed on me. My favorite, the Mayan yellow. I have seen countless 20-plus-year-old tattoos with the colors still vivid. Don't fuck around with all these newfangled companies with their watered-down baloney. Get the tried, true, and tested good shit. You can find them on Instagram at Legacy Pigments or email Ashley today to place an order at legacyartsupplies@gmail.com. Tell them Oliver sent you and receive a special discount. Don't just do tattoos. Be a part of a legacy.
I don't want to be like, I told you so, but I was kind of telling them like what was going on, and, they didn't want to pay attention, and they're like, you think I'm going to just watch the news and blah, 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 and go insane? I was like, well, dude, you have to get some type of information. Would you rather be scared and not know anything about it, or have a little bit of fear and know like what's going on and be realistic about it, So, that was their choice. I didn't really trip on it too much, but when we were open and they didn't want to work, I was like, all right, dude, you got to work.
Now's the time.
There's shifts.
I mean, I had a few people that didn't work for months. And they ended up going to work in other places in the end, but they were complaining about being broke. And I said, come to work.
Yeah.
And they're like, it's not safe. I'm like, I promise you, it's safe. Like we'll
never see that kind of money again.
We were safe. Oh, and then 2021 happened, and it was like the floodgates opened up. The floodgates opened up because there were still people on the fringe that were cautious. And the cautious people were working less, which means, and more people wanted to get tattooed. So
Yeah, because they weren't working and they had that money coming in, and they're like, I got an extra $500 this month. Let's get a tat.
A lot of people were capitalizing on getting tattooed during that time. And I think a lot of people were new. There's a lot of young tattooers, first couple of year tattooers in that time that just kind of assumed this is how their life was going to be.
Yeah, they did.
And then, because, 2017, 18, 19 were pretty good. Mm-hmm. And then 2020 was kind of crazy, but then 2021 was like through the roof. And all these people were like, I've been tattooing for 5 years. I'm like living a dream.
Yeah.
And then
I don't know. Like I've found it's not even like you could just have a couple good months and then it slows down and everyone's like, what the fuck's going on? Where is everybody? And then it picks up again next month and they're like,
yeah, but the people have been tattooing 15, 20, 30 years. It comes and goes.
I think they forgot.
Some people did.
I think they forgot.
I didn't forget.
I didn't, but I was like, hey man, like make this money now because I don't know what's happening after this,
I'm feast
or famine.
Yeah, feast when you got it, and then struggle when you whatever. I don't know what the saying is I was looking for.
Almost there, dude.
I didn't have enough coffee this morning. I had a travesty on the way here today.
Oh yeah, what was that?
I couldn't get we couldn't get coffee. The world was against me.
Sometimes it's like that.
We missed it. We missed one exit and missed a coffee shop, and so routed to the next coffee shop, which happens to be inside fucking Disneyland, and then so we couldn't go there, and then the next coffee shop was closed.
Yeah, and you didn't want the coffee down the street.
No,
I don't blame you. It sucks.
We're not going to say who they are.
Starbucks.
Oh, I don't go to Starbucks. We were talking about that earlier. I am anti-Starbucks, and I would recommend to anyone, never.
Their coffee does suck.
Never go to Starbucks.
I'm a coffee bean guy.
And they have a terrible logo.
You don't like that? Why?
I don't know. I hate it. I don't like anything about the place. I don't like anything about it.
Okay.
So what's the how much afterthought of this whole thing? How much have you talked to other people about what the future of tattooing is going to be?
What do you mean, like as far as after COVID?
Yeah. Like we're obviously in a transition of tattooing right now.
I think that with inflation, with gas prices, with food prices gone up, like people don't have that extra $500 every month to get a tattoo. It's slowed down. There are still people that are serious about it and are fine with getting tattooed right now, but it's slow. And, going to the convention last weekend, it's kind of like the topic that everybody's talking about. I feel like probably after the election, whatever way it goes, people might feel a little bit more, there's not so much up in the air, so they might feel a little more comfortable spending some money.
Well, no matter what, any election year,
the
last 6 months before the election, there's always, on either side, there's always caution or prevention, or people are worried about what's going to happen.
Uneasy about what's going on.
And a lot of businesses put their ad budgets on hold until they find out what the new thing's going to be, because they don't want to invest in a bunch of things that could get shut down and blah, blah, blah. But I think the transition to tattooing right now is it's a hard time to be a new tattooer.
Yeah.
Right this second. But people that have, obviously people have large clienteles and have a
specific style that people are looking for.
And have their own thing, and people are coming to them. They have appointments, and they're working on big work. I think those people, obviously, even if it slows down, going to go back to how it was 10 years ago.
I'm not too worried about it. If you've been tattooing in a place for even, if you've been somewhere 5 years, you built up some clients, they're going to get tattooed by you. They're going to refer their uncle or their sister or whatever, and I think we'll be good.
Yeah, I think it will be good, and I think. I can't even imagine trying to teach someone to tattoo right now. And there's so many people learning to tattoo right now, and so many new people jumping on. And I understand that like the last 10 years, it's grown in popularity and it's been growing a lot. And then obviously the thrush of the last couple of years is made even more people jump on board. But right now, it's like, how many people are either brand new or learning right now that are going to say, man, this might not work?
I mean, I feel like a lot, especially if we go into any type of recession-ish. Like, I already think that we're in one right now.
Yeah.
But if we go into like a real one where the media's talking about it, they'll go back to making coffee or whatever they were, walking dogs or whatever they were doing before.
But if you look at somebody 20 years
No
ago.
offense to dog walkers.
Hey, if you look at 20 years ago, someone who started tattooing, somebody had been tattooing 1 year, there's no way they're going to stop.
No.
There's, and it wasn't like you were, depending on what time of 2010, 2015, or whatever years ago, it wasn't like you weren't instantly rich, but you were good. Yeah. Once you were at a shop, you were good. Tattoo shops hardly ever close down. You know what I mean? Yeah. It doesn't take much to keep a shop open and keep people coming because some people want it. But the idea of people stopping tattooing right now, that's what's crazy to me.
Well, I think that people are going to stop, but if you would have told me that, like, 2018, 2019, if you were like, hey, so-and-so quit tattooing, I'd be like, what the fuck? What's he going to do?
Yeah.
Like, why would he do that?
I mean, there's like 3 people that have like quit tattooing. Dan Higgs, Chris Kahn, Scott Harrison.
Yeah.
All crazy, eccentric artist people that didn't want to handle dealing with the person to person.
Yeah.
Like that was their issue, or problems with their hands or something like that. But that's it. Who else quit tattooing?
Well, I mean, Chris Kahn's tattooing again.
But you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But he did quit at the height of nobody else. Like Charlie Cartwright's still fucking tattooing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Old people, like people just, nobody quits.
No.
But I think that is what's going to change in the future. I think people are going to do it for a little while. Like they were in a band in high school, or they did this job and then they're going to do a different job, or they're going to.
It's not as much, they're not as committed. And I could definitely see that happening. And I wouldn't mind either. Like half of these dudes could quit right now and we would never even know. They all do the same type of tattoos anyways,
Well, the pie is getting sliced pretty thin. And as many shops have opened up in the last decade, it's crazy. Like when I worked at True Tattoo.
I opened up 9 in the last decade.
And you're just one guy.
Just one man.
Well, I worked at True Tattoo before when Chris and Clay owned it together, and whatever year that was.
Yeah, I worked there briefly.
Oh, those were good times.
I was just working when Nick moved up to Blackheart.
So I worked there before that I ended up owning it. And at that time, I think there was 60 or something tattoo shops in Hollywood. Just Hollywood, not LA. It was Hollywood
proper,
And then within the next 10 years, there was like 400.
Holy shit.
Or something. It went crazy.
That's wild.
And then I think some of those did close.
Oh yeah, I'm sure.
I know a handful of them closed, but man, it got to, it was a point where it was just tattoo.
I haven't been out there in so long. Like I dread going out to LA.
Oh man, we drove by Cahuenga yesterday.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
What'd they put in that spot?
It's a weed store.
Oh really?
Yeah, selling weed.
That's the only people that could probably pay that rent.
Selling weed. When I left, they were raising the rent.
Yeah, I know. You told me.
Yeah, they were raising the rent in 2020, and I was like, I'm fucking out of here.
Yeah, the broker actually emailed me and was like, hey man, I got to space. Be great for a tattoo shop. And I was like, I wanted to get some more info. I obviously knew it was True Tattoo. And he hit me with a number. I was like, oh, damn, dude. Like, no way.
What were they trying to get?
I think it was like 12 something.
Yeah, because they were raising it to 10.
Yeah.
Or it was 10 when I left, and they wanted to raise it.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, y'all are crazy.
No way.
Hello? Well, we're going to cut this one. This is a short episode today. I know you want to get out of here and we got to get to work, but I appreciate you coming on and shedding some light. And I want to thank you for being a positive part of the tattoo community.
Oh, thanks, dude.
And I really think you kind of downplay what you did for that during the shutdown. But
I wish it was a better story. But.
No, man, it took somebody to say, yeah, count me in. Let's do this. Let's fight for what we think should happen.
I mean, we both saw it. Just everybody rolled over, and it was hard. It was hard.
Audra's reminding me.
What's that?
We want to talk about your new venture. Want to talk about your new venture?
Okay, so I can make this sales pitch really short.
It don't have to be short.
Okay,
it don't have to be that short anyway.
So I basically, I'll give you my problem as a shop owner and, running social media myself.
Social media is so fucking pain in the ass.
It's a total pain in the ass. So, if you want to repost people's stuff, you have to go through Instagram. You have to find a post. You have to either screenshot it or copy the URL and move it to an app.
Or text them to say, send me the photos.
Yeah, there's
blah,
all
blah, blah.
different ways of people doing it, and there's not an easy way. So I created this app. It's called Sync Post Pro, and it aggregates all of your artists' Instagram posts onto one database, and it gives you.
But not even just artists. All of your employees, it could be any kind of business.
It can be artists. It could be basically anywhere that has independent contractors that post their own work on their Instagram.
Hairstylists.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Some gyms, like personal training gyms, they do that too.
Personal trainers, home remodelers, all kind of shit.
So it basically aggregates all of the posts and gives it to you on one sheet. And you can go through there and you can say, okay, these are all good tattoos from all of your artists. You could approve all of them, and it pushes it into a scheduler. And when the schedule is pushed in there, you pick the days of the week and the times of the day that you want to post, and it does it all for you automatically. It's linked up to your Facebook and your Instagram. So
each artist, when they post something, do they have to tag?
No, they don't have to tag.
You sync to them. They don't have. You follow their account, and it monitors everything they do.
Yeah, when you sign up, you enter all of your artists' Instagrams in there, and then it goes back and it scrapes data off of their Instagram accounts and gives it to you in a spreadsheet.
Is this do for any other social media platforms?
It's going to be for TikTok also.
What about X?
Yeah, but I mean, I don't necessarily see tattooing on X too much. I feel like it's mostly people talking about, shit they hate.
Yeah, like Gavin Newsom. What about Facebook?
Yeah, Facebook,
Instagram,
and
Facebook kind of mimic each other.
Yeah, I mean, Facebook is an older crowd, which is fine. Like, we could get them in here too, but since Instagram is such a visual thing, I think it just works.
What I do is the way I use Facebook is it's synced to my Instagram. So anything that goes on my Instagram also goes to my Facebook. So people are always messaging me on Facebook, being like, thinking that I'm active on there, thinking I'm on there, thinking I'm seeing it, and I don't see their messages because I never look at it. And they're like, oh man, I'm But it definitely. I feel like it's coming back. I feel like there's
Facebook.
I feel like it's getting more interactions than it used to.
Huh. I don't know. I haven't been on there in years.
There's a lot of groups on there that people are interacting with.
Yeah, like the groups and stuff I think people are on, and they, probably are on it pretty often,
I get messages from, people want me to join their group.
Yeah.
Old Harley Davidson Park group and tattoo group and all this stuff.
That's cool.
So the app, Sync, what's it called?
Sync Post Pro.
Sync Post Pro. And what does it take to get on to?
So it's a monthly subscription. It's $79 a month. You could cancel anytime, and there's a 2-week trial offer.
2-week free trial?
Yeah. So basically, you go on there, you load up all your information, and, it takes a little while to scrape the data. Within the next day, you should be able to log into your account, and you'll have all the posts up there.
Well, at $80 a month, you're definitely going to spend more time than that going through. If you've got 1, 2, 3 tattoo shops, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 employees, tattooers posting every day, you got to sync it up. Like most people, we have a social media person that does all this, and it's a job.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I never had one, and that's why we never were really consistent on it, because you have to have someone that dedicated to that, that's consistent. And Instagram wants you to post consistently. They want you to post reels, and they want you to post carousels, which are like the multi-picture post.
You get these little rewards for doing what they want.
And
you get put into the feed or whatever.
Yeah, we've been using it for a little while on the shop account, and people that I didn't mention anything to, they're like, hey man, you're like posting a lot on here. I'm seeing it now. And that's cool. I don't think the likes are really that great, because I don't think people like things anymore. They just kind of scroll through it, just like the stories,
I know, but you'll post a reel, and the reels will show you how many views you get.
Yeah.
And you'll get thousands of views.
Oh yeah, as long as they're seeing it, I don't care.
And then a few likes.
They don't have to press the like button, as long as the impressions are there.
And sometimes there's a shitload of comments and not even a whole lot of likes.
Yeah.
So people are engaging in it. People just aren't.
Yeah. So, I mean, like you're saying, like, even if it was, one shop with 5 dudes, if you're going and trying to post, say you want to post 14 posts, you want to post twice a day, that's 14 posts. You got to find those posts, get them into your scheduler somehow. That's going to take time. Like if I was trying to do it, it would probably take me, 2 hours to do it right and to write all the captions and everything. This does everything for you.
I mean, a lot of people don't do it because they can't.
Yeah.
Because it's too much, and they just want to do tattoos.
Exactly.
And look how many tattooers are not good on Instagram or in the internet at all, and they don't post much and they don't talk much, and you like.
Yeah. I mean, there's, obviously people get a little corny with it, but this is like, you're using your artist's post. You're not like, there's no AI making up some weird shit for you. It's just like your dude's post and sent to you directly.
But you were showing me you can look through everything that people have in your group has posted, and you can say, you can decline. Yeah. You can add something into the feed or take it out of the feed.
Yeah. When you archive it, another post from that artist shows up in its spot, because, try to consistently post everybody equally helps out also. Yeah.
Very cool. Sync Post Pro.
Sync Post Pro.
And is it in the, what do you got to go to the App Store?
No. It's just a web service. They call it a SAS, like software as a solution in the business, the tech business.
So you go to
www.syncpostpro.com.
www. I always say www. And people make fun of me. I was like, you know what I mean? It's the internet, dude.
Just go on the interweb.
Go on the internet and search Sync Post Pro, and you can make your Instagram nightmares into fucking
a fantasy world. Yeah. You could do whatever you want. You could just take that time and you could do another tattoo. You could go take a break. You could, go home and spend some time with your kids and not have to worry about your phone. So, I did that for you guys because I love you.
You're looking out for people.
I am. I also want money, but that's secondary.
Secondary.
I mean, I mainly did it to save me time.
Yeah.
And I had the idea and I was like, oh, well, this can work, and I just have to find a way to do it. And, I found a good group of developers that are legit, and it's pretty awesome.
I mean, it looks legit.
Yeah, it's cool. Thank you.
Yeah, look it up.
syncpostpro.com.
And see how legit it is. All right. Well, it's almost time for us to set up and do some tats.
All right, cool, man.
Thanks.
Well, Oliver, thank you for having me on here. And, I've told you this multiple times, but I'm usually pretty on another level when I'm out in Dallas. But thank you for everything that you've done for me and our friendship. And, meeting you is kind of like taking everything into a whole nother direction. So I appreciate that. And I appreciate
that. You've been one of my favorite people that I've ever worked with in my career.
Thanks.
And I do refer to those early days as the glory days, man. Those good times. And I always appreciate your hospitality out here.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Anybody
wants to come down, come on down.
Port City Tattoo.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Love you guys.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Hey, please remember to like, share, and subscribe. Come on, guys. Click all those links. Push all those buttons, because it really helps us out and gets us out there to more and more peeps. What in the Duck podcast is produced by Audra Cabral and John.com Niederkorn. Our sound, video engineer, and editor is Courtney, Junior Larkins. Initial audio video setup and intro music by Blake Balake Pinchon. And a big thanks to everyone that submitted questions. Y'all keep them coming. Email me any questions you would like me to answer to whatintheduckpodcast@gmail.com. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time on What in the Duck. What in the Duck podcast is proud to be sponsored by Label Solutions, www.labelsolutionsinc.com. I've been a customer of theirs for over a decade. They make the highest quality premium labels for all kinds of products. Food and beverage, personal care products, pet care products, beer and wine spirits, CBD products, automotive products, and more. They can make a label for almost anything. Multicolor, custom die cut, full wraparound labels, too many options to even tell you about. I use Label Solutions for all the stickers and labels for my stuff, like the Tiki Loco label on the coffee I'm drinking right now. They do have a minimum order of 1,000 labels, so they won't make you 20 labels for that soap you're making in your bathtub. But if you've got products to label, you need Label Solutions. Get started today at www.labelsolutionsinc.com.